This is probably the question of the day about that Chinese surveillance balloon.
Did we know what that balloon was trying to gather? Do we know what information it was trying to gather from the United States? It didn't fly over us by accident. It was intentional.
The real answer is classified, but I'll share with you what the public answer was.
Some very good guesses about that, and we are learning more as we exploit the contents of the balloon and the payload itself.
The military and the State Department were on the hot seat today answering questions from a Senate subcommittee about that Chinese surveillance balloon. The State Department said the balloon had electronic surveillance technology on board that could monitor sensitive U.S. communications. They call it signals intelligence. And because the balloon can loiter over an area for a longer period of time, unlike satellites that are constantly moving, balloons have the ability to sort of get more robust data. Though the Pentagon, the Secretary of State, and the panelists during today's subcommittee hearing all said the U.S. had eyes on this balloon from the beginning and was able to protect our sensitive information and prevent China from getting a hold of it. And it's also being reported today that China stopped sending transmissions from the balloon back to Beijing once they figured out the U.S. was onto them. But the timing of all of this is really interesting. On January 28th, the NORAD commander spotted the balloon as it entered U.S. airspace and traveled over Alaska for a short period of time. The commander determined it was not a military threat, it was not a threat to U.S. air traffic, nor was it a threat to civilians, so the decision was made to just watch it. And then it floated into Canada. But then it changed directions, and on January 31st, it started to fly into the lower 48. NORAD was still tracking it, and the president was briefed on the options. The State Department and the military testified today that since the NORAD commander said it wasn't a threat to civilians or the military, and it wasn't able really to collect any data, watching it would give the U.S. a better understanding of the scope of the Chinese surveillance balloon program. Of course, by February 4th, we all watched when an F-22 shot the balloon down over the Atlantic Ocean into the shallow water. But understandably, the senator from Alaska was pissed. The military didn't shoot the balloon down when it flew over her state. But the Department of Defense says there's actually a good reason for that.
A key piece of this is the recovery. For us to be able to exploit and understand this balloon and its capabilities fully, if we had taken it down over the state of Alaska, which is part of the United States, it would have been a very different recovery operation. As Senator Murkowski knows, the water depths offshore, the Aleutians, at 6+ nautical miles go very quickly from about 150 feet to over 18,000 feet near the Bering Sea. The winter water temperatures in the Bering Sea hover consistently in the low 30s, which would make recovery and salvage operations very dangerous.
We think before we shoot. And in this case, we thought before we shot